welcome to Steph Time. My name is Stephanie, and today I have another Sew With Me video for you guys. Today we are making the Antoinette shirt by Izza and Stitches. This is what it looks like. It has a couple different color variations and a couple different sleeve variations, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great staple for your wardrobe. So if you want to see that, keep on watching, and if you like this video, like it. If you want to see more of me, subscribe. Love having you here. And yeah, get your scissors, get your fabric, get your thread and your machine ready, because we're just gonna jump right in. Hello, we meet again. I have already cut out my pattern pieces and my fabric, and I'm marking the darts for the bust. I'm pinning those up and sewing them together, tying the threads at the end at the point, and I'm connecting the shoulders of the front and back bodice, and then I'm also finishing the seams using my serger. Next, I have already gathered the ruffle for the collar, and I am now evenly distributing it along the collar's edge. This kind of takes a long time, but you want to take your time pinning and readjusting just to make sure that final product is very beautiful. So I did this many times and readjusted as I went, and then we're going to sew that down. I like to keep the ruffle on top while I'm sewing so that the feed dogs don't shift it or pull it as we are sewing. So as you can see, I'm lifting my presser foot often so that I can kind of adjust and make sure that things are sewing nice and smooth. And once we have that finished, we are sandwiching the two collar pieces with the ruffle sandwiched inside. So I'm just pinning that at the ends and the top middle to kind of make sure that the fabric is well distributed throughout. And then of course we are going to sew this together, making sure that we're sandwiching the ruffle on the inside as we go, because we're going to flip this inside out. Now before I fully flip it inside out or cut the seam allowance, I check and make sure that the ruffle is good to go. I didn't sew anything weird, and then I cut that seam allowance back so that we have really smooth edges when we flip it inside out. I'm also using my lint roller to pick up any spare threads that may have made it out, which is a little trick of mine. Now we're putting the collar's edge alongside the neck hole edge and pinning that down and sewing it down. So once we have pinned this all and sewn it together, we will cover this raw edge with bias tape. And often people will pin their bias tape to whatever they're trying to cover, but I kind of like to stitch and place it as I go. It saves me a lot of time. It takes a little bit of practice, so I do recommend trying it before you go in on your final piece, but it saves a lot of time, and it's a trick I actually learned when I was sewing face masks early on in the pandemic. So we'll fold that over to cover and encase the raw edges, pin it all down, and sew it down as well. And this stitch line will be covered by the collar when you're wearing the shirt. And all of these little details are of course outlined in Izza and Stitch's pattern instructions. So if you're wanting to make this, you'll obviously follow that and learn as you go. Next, I am sewing down the front button plackets. I have folded them and ironed them. Now I'm sewing them down. And now I am gathering the sleeves. So I'm gathering them and pinning them to the sleeve holes. Again, making sure to distribute them evenly, because this is going to be a focal part of the piece. We're going to sew those down, checking to make sure that the feed dogs aren't pulling our gathers. And then we are going to attach the side seams from the edge of the sleeve down to the bottom of the shirt. And we're of course going to finish that as well with a serger or French seams. However you want to finish your seams is fine. But we're doing that to both sides. And it's starting to shape up like a shirt, but we gotta gather those sleeves to put in the cuffs. So we're gathering those now, and then we're gonna attach our cuffs together, as you can see here, and then we're going to attach our gathered sleeve to the cuff. And we're also gonna make sure that is well distributed. The gathers are a big focal part of this shirt, so we wanna make sure that they look nice. It didn't quite fit over my sleeve attachment of my sewing machine, so I'm sewing it down kind of weird here. I'm marking the hemline, ironing that down, folding it in, and then sandwiching all those raw edges inside. And sewing it here, as you can see, making a tornado. Next, we are finishing the bottom hem of the shirt, folding it under and sewing it down to encase that raw edge. And next we need to decide what the heck buttons we're gonna use. I have a ton of vintage buttons, so every time I do this, I'm like, which ones should I do? And I went with these candy apple red buttons, and I decided to do them in groups of 2. I've been seeing this trend kind of on Instagram, and I wanted to try it out. Took a little bit of measuring, but what I did was just basically offset from the original buttonhole markings. I've made all my buttonholes, and now I'm marking where the buttons should be placed through the buttonholes by lining up my button plackets. And next we are going to sew on all those buttons. Oh, and I did use fray check on all of my buttonholes, which is a nice little hack. Sewing on all these buttons did take quite a long time, but not quite as long as trimming all of the threads from all of the buttons. But after this, guys, we are done. Alrighty, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, like it. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. And if you want to see more about this pattern, everything will be linked in the description box below. The link to the pattern, Izza from Izza and Stitches, is amazing, and she also has videos. I will link those down below. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye! Recalibration. Hi. Hello.